Davion Mitchell does really well is impact that second unit with his defensive performances, which we saw as he took the podium with the defensive player of the game
I like that.
chain after that was San Antonio, right? That he had the
Yeah.
defensive player of the game chain, which coincided nicely with one of his better offensive performances in recent weeks.
Yeah, man. He shot the ball with confidence. He looked for his shot. I always look at Davion. Let me know what you think about this and if you feel the same way. I look at Davion and I always feel like whatever you get offensively is gravy.
Mm-hmm.
Like he
It's
could
a
score,
bonus.
yeah, he could score 2 points. And if he played great defense, I'm not tripping. The crazy thing about it is, I think he's more talented than that. Like, I think he's more capable of an offensive score than, hey, if he just play defense and whatever you give me is gravy. Like, I think he can have more games like he had on Sunday night. I think he's capable of it, but for whatever reason, maybe he's a little unsure of where his shots are going to come from, um, and of being aggressive with the offensive game. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you feel the same way where, like, hey, whatever you give me is a bonus, or do you think I need more from him on the offensive end?
I started to think about that over the weekend after this game specifically, like how needed is Davion's offensive output, because there's plenty of games where we look at and we see what he's doing defensively and we all come in the next day. Whew, we talk about who's cooking offensively and double doubles and dunks and Mr. Fourth Quarters, but there's always a moment that you could point to on the defensive end where Davion Mitchell really stands out. And I'm going to kind of cop out of an answer here a little bit, in the sense that it's okay. It's a bonus if someone else in the second unit is cooking. And that's what it feels like has been happening recently, whether it's been Chimezie Metu or it's been Malik Monk. It feels like someone in that second group has been able to get going offensively, and that will allow Davion to focus on the defensive end, focus on playmaking. Anything he hits in that sense is a bonus. But I think they needed his production on Sunday or Saturday or whatever day it was to help open that game up a little bit. It was Sunday to help open that up a little bit. And in that sense, it felt like, this is exactly what the Kings needed. They needed this performance on this day with this unit. They needed this performance from Davion. So I'm just not going to answer your question. I'm going to tiptoe around it and say it depends on the game. On most nights, I think what he does on the defensive end is perfect. But if Malik isn't going, if TD can't get something to fall, if for whatever reason, Chimezie Metu is unable to find balls at the rim or whatever the case may be, maybe, okay, maybe that's where Davion's got to take advantage of the opportunities that he has. And maybe that's the other thing too. Take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you, because that forces defenses to play different. That might only be 4 to 6 points, because he had what was it, 18 or 19 the other night. And I feel like he created a lot of those, which the creation to me, that's a bonus. Yeah, that's 100% a bonus. I would weigh far more heavily on what he does on the defensive end, on the importance scale of the Sacramento Kings for the Sacramento Kings.
I understand everything you're saying. I just think of like when he when you look at his stat line and you look at like bench production or whatever, right? If bench production is low, we're usually, at least me, I shouldn't put everybody in this, but I'm usually looking at, okay, man, Monk didn't play very well. TD, you got to give me more. Trey Lyles didn't really do good. Metu, and when Rashawn was playing, dang, that's not good enough for Rashawn. Like, I never look at Davion and see 4 points. I'm like, man, Davion, you got to give me more than that.
Yeah.
Because
I got you.
He's giving me what I need him to give out there on the court. And that's be frontline defender. He's usually always good in that job. He
never misses there. Yeah.
Always good in that job. And I look at the other guys to pick up the scoring load. So, but the crazy thing is, I feel that way. And I think he's capable of scoring, maybe not 18, but I think he can be a guy that scores 8 to 11 points coming off the bench. Like, I think he's capable of that.
Yeah, I absolutely thought headed into the season he could be a double-digit scorer for Sacramento. Um, it feels like Malik leads that second group, and oftentimes when he's looking, because Malik also a playmaker for that second group, it looks like oftentimes when he's kind of leading that, he's not necessarily searching around the perimeter for a shooter. He's looking inside, which is, and you hit the nail on the head with this beautifully before Chimezie came back, is those two works so well when they're together. But I think Davion can be a double-digit per game score, even if it is, the 10 or 11 that you just referenced right there. The 18 just feels like if Davion Mitchell scores 18 semi-regularly, this team's really good.
Hey, look,
this team's
look,
really,
I'm
good.
gonna tell you this right now. Matter of fact, just go ahead. Tell the people where we're listening, because
you are listening to D-Lo and KC on KIFM West Sacramento 98.5 FM, KRXQ HD2 Sacramento, ESPN 1320, driven by our friends over at Lashers, Elk Grove Dodge, always live on the free Odyssey app, YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook Live as well. Anytime Kenny asks me to do that means he's going to cut a hell of a promo.
Well, look, man, let me just tell you right now, all this playoffs and will they make out? That's done. They in. They're in. They're going to make it. It's a damn fact to me at this point. Barring injury or anything like that, they're in. The playoff drought ends. And I'm not even talking playing. They're making the playoffs, Damian. It's happening. There's a couple of things that kind of had me so locked into this over the weekend, right? I think Will Z, I wish this could be a professional here and actually have the tweet in front of me. But one of the reasons why I know is because the Sacramento Kings official IG picked up the tweet and talked about what it was. But it got to the point of
somebody should really be paying Will Z to do this, by the way.
It got to the it was talking about the point that the Kings have scored, I think, 130 plus in 5 straight games. And nobody in the NBA has done that since I think it was 1988.
I believe it was Denver
in 88. And Will Z used the term. He said, we're literally witnessing historical production from the Sacramento Kings right now. Like, not just, oh man, they're good. Like, it's a good offense. Like, no, this is something we haven't seen in the league in 25 years. Right. So it had me thinking a little bit more. And I went back and I did my own little Will Z research.
Oh my, okay.
And the Kings are averaging 120 points per game. That's the best in the NBA. I look back in the last 10 seasons of teams that led the league in scoring. They've all made the playoffs. Now, some of this is a little wonky as I went through it, because there's some that I just kind of, when you go through it, I feel like you got to throw out, because 1, 2, 3, 4 of these times it was the Warriors, right? And okay. I like the Kings. They don't have Steph, Katie, and Clay, right? So that's just a different ball game.
Yeah, we got Domas, De'Aaron, and Kayvon.
There's that. Oh, there's that. The 3 years before last year, it was the Bucks, right? The other thing that separated those Bucks and Warriors teams, where they were almost at the top of defense. And what I did was points per game. And when I talked about defense, I talked about points allowed per game. And then I looked at opponent field goal percentage. I didn't do per 100 rating. I'm not getting into all that. And those Bucks and Warriors teams, they were like top of the league in opponent field goal percentage. So that's not who the Kings are. But you look at the Timberwolves from last year, they averaged 115.9 points per game. They were 24th in opponents' points per game, but they were 16th in the league in opponent field goal percentage. So middle of the pack. I went back even further, and it's kind of hard like doing this now, especially when I see these numbers, because it's clear the game is different. But before the Warriors, 13-14, it was the Clippers. The Clippers led They led the league in scoring at 107.9 points per game. That's a trip. That's a trip to see that.
Times have changed.
But they led the league in scoring in that. But they were fifth in the league in opponent field goal percentage. The opponent shot 44%. The year before that 10th year, it was the Nuggets. They averaged 106 points per game for the season. That led the league, and they were 20th in opponent field goal percentage. Right now, the Kings are, if I got this right, 27th in the league. Teams are shooting 49% on the Kings this year. That's
against the Kings.
Yeah, okay. That's got to be better.
Well, they're at 24th, 5th ranked defense. 24th. So like,
well, I mean, the ranking is whatever, but 24th in opponents' points per game is where they're at. But all these teams, they all made the playoffs. Obviously, when the Clippers and the Nuggets played, there wasn't a play-in situation. But the Clippers won a series. They lost that year in the semis. The Nuggets lost in the first round to the Warriors. And the Timberwolves lost in the first round last year. They had opportunities to win that series last year, too, against Memphis. But they all got in there. I didn't go back further, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 years. You lead the league in scoring. I know a lot of people can complain. You don't play no defense, all this other stuff. You lead the league in scoring. And you're putting up a number like 120 points per night. Just the way the season works out, you're not going to always get people super focused on you. You're going to be able to keep that up. You're going to make the playoffs. And I think the Sacramento Kings, they're not making the play-in. They're making the playoffs. They're going to be in a series. They're staying in the top 6.
I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you.
It's the end of my TED Talk.
Yeah, I think part of the reason for that is what we talked about a minute ago with the contributions that you're getting from guys like Davion Mitchell. We saw Terrence Davis struggle a little bit in that first game against Houston and then step right up in the second game on Friday night and play fantastic. Mm-hmm. He went back to the second unit against San Antonio over the weekend. Didn't get quite as much, burn. Mm-hmm. But overall, he certainly made the most of his time in the starting lineup with Kevin Huerter out. And I think when you have a bench that you can rely on, and it feels like, I think it's a little too early, given that this bench just went through some hiccups in very, very, very recent games. Mm-hmm. It's a little too early to kind of put a stamp on how reliable they are. But I feel really confident when the second unit is out there.
I agree.
There have been times this year where Domas sits and it's like, oh, dear God, is this still a professional basketball team? There have been times where De'Aaron would be out and it's like, who's going to like, what is happening with this group right now? Mm-hmm. It feels like a lot of that has settled down, man. And it's hard to not go back to just a couple of weeks. Shoot, we're gearing up for the Lakers on Wednesday. I think a lot changed after the Lakers lost at the Golden One Center. I think that was a really frustrating loss for the team in terms of the fact they gave up 136. They scored 134 points and lost. Mm-hmm. It's the one game in this streak where they've scored 130 plus and have lost. It was at a sold-out Golden One Center on a Friday night. They knew Trista Crick was here. And it felt like that loss and some of the performances coming out of it was a turning point for them.
Yeah. I mean, and I also feel like
particularly the bench.
Yeah, and that was, I kind of been more, I'm not saying I'm the reason for it. I'm just thinking about my mindset.
Oh, you are.
Well, thank you. But that's when I went public with it. I tweeted, I said, yo, Mike Brown he gotta fix his bench situation. He up here, he worrying about, I'm not gonna play this guy if they don't do this. Get back to, like I've been saying for what I've been calling, get back to your superpower. Mm-hmm. And it is, I know I want them to play defense too, but it's your offensive strength in numbers. The offensive pressure that you put on teams in the regular season is your superpower. And for whatever the reason was, I don't know if it was because he had an epiphany or the other guys.
Oh my, can you imagine? Oh, if Mike Brown starts a press conference with, I had an epiphany.
I had an epiphany while I was looking at the Chatty House the other day.
Oh man, be an all-timer.
But that's when he went back to Metu. And he was like,
Metu.
All right, let's see what you got. And Terrence Davis, due to Huerter, being out and some other stuff, got back to playing. And He got back to extending the minutes for those bench guys. And
we saw Malik's performances
saw Malik.
with Chimezie
Absolutely.
back in the
Absolutely.
and I'm not going to say it's directly because of Chimezie being in the lineup, but it's hard not to connect those dots.
Yeah. So I think knowing, how do I put this? Knowing who you are, knowing what your strength is right now, doesn't eliminate trying to get where you want to be. Like, I don't think they want to be this defensive I know they don't want to be this defensive team all year. That doesn't mean you have to ignore what your greatest strength is. And they've tapped into that. They've had a schedule that's helped out with that. You know, they haven't faced great defenses.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not a great defense, they can feast on you. And it's helped them kind of get their vibes back, get their mojo back. We didn't mention it because we were off on Monday and the last game was on Friday, but did exactly what I called for. Exactly what you called for. James Ham called for. You gotta go 3-0 against these teams.
Mm-hmm.
They handle business at the end of that homestand right there. And that's what, to me, that's what good teams do.
Mm-hmm.
They handle business. You're not always going to win against the top flight teams and things of that nature. But when push comes to shove, you handle business when business needs to be handled. And that's what they did last week.